Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. The sound of the electric razor filled the small bathroom as Tatum grimaced, watching another patch of dark hair fall away from his leg. He'd never imagined he'd find himself in this position, losing a ridiculous bet and now having to attend his friend's party dressed as a woman. The whole thing seemed absurd, yet here he was, stripped down to his boxers and methodically removing every bit of body hair he could reach. "You missed a spot," came an amused voice from the doorway. Tatum looked up to see Megan leaning against the frame, a smirk playing on her lips. As his friend Derek's girlfriend, she'd volunteered to help Tatum with his transformation for the evening. "Very funny," Tatum grumbled, trying to twist to see the back of his thigh in the mirror. "I don't know how you do this regularly. It's taking forever." Megan chuckled, stepping into the bathroom. "Practice makes perfect. Here, let me help with the hard-to-reach spots." She took the razor from his hand, her touch gentle as she guided him to turn around. "So, are you nervous about tonight?" Tatum let out a long breath. "Terrified might be a better word. I still can't believe I agreed to this." "Oh, come on, it'll be fun. And who knows, you might discover a whole new side of yourself." There was a teasing lilt to Megan's voice, but also a hint of something else. Curiosity, perhaps? As Megan helped him finish shaving, Tatum's mind wandered back to how he'd ended up in this predicament. It had started as a simple poker night with the guys, but as the drinks flowed and the stakes got higher, someone had the bright idea to make the loser attend the upcoming Halloween party in full drag. Tatum, riding high on a winning streak, had cockily agreed. Now, a week later, he was paying the price for his overconfidence. "All right, you're as smooth as the baby's bottom," Megan declared, setting the razor aside. "Time for the fun part. Makeup." Tatum groaned, but allowed himself to be led to the bedroom, where an array of cosmetics was spread out on the dresser. He sat down in front of the mirror, eyeing the unfamiliar products warily. "I have no idea where to even start with all this." "That's why you have me," Megan said, picking up a bottle of foundation. "Now close your eyes and let me work my magic." For the next hour, Tatum sat patiently as Megan applied layer after layer of makeup. He could feel the brush strokes on his skin, the gentle dabs of sponges, and the occasional instruction to pucker up or look up. It was a strange sensation, but not entirely unpleasant. "Okay, you can look now," Megan said finally, stepping back with a satisfied smile. Tatum opened his eyes and gasped. The face staring back at him from the mirror was beautiful. His features had been softened, his eyes accentuated with smoky shadow and long lashes. His lips were a soft pink, fuller than he'd ever seen them. It was still recognizably him, but a completely different version. Feminine, alluring. "Wow," he breathed, unable to tear his gaze away from his reflection. I don't even know what to say." Megan beamed, clearly proud of her handiwork. "You make a pretty hot girl, Tatum. Now let's get you dressed." The next part was a whirlwind of activity. Megan helped him into a padded bra, showing him how to adjust it for a natural look. Then came the dress, a slinky black number that hugged curves Tatum didn't even know he had. A pair of sheer stockings and some low heels completed the outfit. "Last but not least," Megan said, holding up a long, blonde wig. She carefully positioned it on Tatum's head, adjusting it until it fell in soft waves around his face. "There, take a look." Tatum turned to the full-length mirror and froze. The person staring back at him was a stranger, a beautiful, curvaceous blonde woman in a little black dress. He raised a hand to his face, watching as the reflection did the same. It was surreal. Is that really me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Megan nodded, standing beside him in the mirror. "What do you think?" Tatum couldn't find the words to express the jumble of emotions swirling inside him. There was shock, of course, at the complete transformation, but there was something else too. A flutter of excitement, a strange sense of rightness that he couldn't quite explain. "I think," he said slowly, "that I might actually be able to pull this off." Megan laughed, giving his shoulder a squeeze. "Oh, honey, you're going to do more than pull it off. You're going to turn heads." As they made their final preparations for the party, Tatum found himself becoming more comfortable in his new skin. The initial awkwardness of walking in heels gave way to a swaying, confident stride. He practiced speaking in a higher pitch, giggling at his attempts to sound feminine. "You're a natural," Megan remarked, watching him with amusement. "Maybe you missed your calling." Tatum rolled his eyes, but there was a smile playing on his lips. "Let's not get carried away. This is a one-time thing, remember?" But even as he said it, a small part of him wondered if that was true. The way he felt in this outfit, with this face, it was unlike anything he'd experienced before. The sound of a car horn outside broke through his thoughts. "That'll be Derek," Megan said, grabbing her purse. "You ready for your grand debut?" Tatum took a deep breath, smoothing down his dress. "As ready as I'll ever be." They made their way outside, where Derek was waiting in his car. As Tatum approached, he saw his friend's eyes widen in shock. "Holy shit!" Derek exclaimed, doing a double take. "Tatum, is that really you?" Tatum felt a blush creep up his cheeks, suddenly very aware of how exposed he felt. "In the flesh, sort of," he replied, trying to inject some humor into his voice. Derek shook his head in disbelief. "Man, when we made that bet, I never thought... you look... wow." "Doesn't he clean up nice?" Megan said proudly, sliding into the passenger seat. "Our little Tatum's all grown up and ready for prom." Tatum rolled his eyes as he carefully maneuvered into the back seat, mindful of his dress. "Very funny. Let's just get this over with, shall we?" As they drove to the party, Tatum's nerves began to resurface. What if someone recognized him? What if he made a fool of himself? What if... "Relax," Megan said, turning to look at him from the front seat. "You look amazing, and half the people at this party won't even know it's you. Just have fun with it." Tatum nodded, trying to take her advice to heart. When they arrived at the house where the party was being held, he took a deep breath before stepping out of the car. The cool night air brushed against his bare legs, sending a shiver up his spine. As they approached the front door, Tatum could hear the thump of music and the sound of laughter spilling out. Derek knocked, and a moment later, the door swung open to reveal their friend Chris, dressed as a pirate. Chris's jaw dropped as his eyes landed on Tatum. "No way," he breathed, a grin spreading across his face. "Tatum, dude, you actually did it." Tatum managed a small smile, acutely aware of the other partygoers peering curiously at him from inside. "A bet's a bet, right?" Chris laughed, stepping aside to let them in. "Man, you're gonna be the talk of the party. Come on in." As they entered the crowded living room, Tatum felt all eyes turn to him. He heard whispers, saw pointing fingers, but to his surprise, most of the reactions seemed positive. Several people even complimented his costume, clearly not realizing who he really was. "See, I told you," Megan whispered, giving him an encouraging nudge. "Now go mingle, and remember, you're Tatiana tonight." With that, she and Derek disappeared into the crowd, leaving Tatum, or rather Tatiana, to fend for himself. For a moment, he stood there awkwardly, unsure of what to do. Then, taking a deep breath, he decided to embrace the role fully. He straightened his posture, put on his best smile, and sauntered over to the drinks table. As he poured himself a glass of punch, he felt a presence beside him. Turning, he found himself face to face with a tall, handsome man in a Superman costume. "Hi there," the man said, flashing a charming smile. "I don't think we've met. I'm Mike." Tatum felt his heart race. This was it, the moment of truth. Could he really pull this off? Channeling all the confidence he could muster, he smiled back. "Tatiana?" he replied, his voice soft and feminine. "It's nice to meet you, Mike." To his surprise and relief, Mike seemed completely convinced. They fell into easy conversation, discussing the party, their costumes, and various other topics. Tatum found himself relaxing, even enjoying the interaction. There was something freeing about being someone else for the night. As the evening wore on, Tatum moved through the party with growing confidence. He danced, he laughed, he flirted. Some people who knew him played along with the charade, while others remained completely oblivious. More than once, he caught Megan watching him with a knowing smile, clearly amused by how well he was taking to his new persona. It was nearing midnight when Tatum found himself out on the back porch, taking a moment to catch his breath. The cool air felt good on his flushed skin, and he closed his eyes, savoring the moment of quiet. Having fun? He opened his eyes to see a woman leaning against the railing beside him. She was dressed as a fairy, complete with glittery wings and a wand. It took Tatum a moment to recognize her as Amanda, a coworker he'd always found attractive, but had never worked up the courage to ask out. "I am, actually," he replied, realizing with a start that it was true. Despite his initial reservations, he was genuinely enjoying himself. Amanda smiled, her eyes twinkling in the dim porch light. "You look fantastic, by the way. That dress is amazing on you." Tatum felt a blush creep up his cheeks, and not just from the compliment. Did Amanda know it was him? Or did she think she was talking to another woman? "Thank you," he said carefully. "You look wonderful, too. Those wings are incredible." They fell into easy conversation, discussing the party and laughing about some of the more outrageous costumes they'd seen. Tatum found himself relaxing, enjoying Amanda's company in a way he never had before. There was something different about their dynamic tonight, a sense of openness and comfort that hadn't been there in their previous interactions. As they talked, Tatum became increasingly aware of a shift happening within himself. The line between Tatum and Tatiana was blurring. He wasn't just playing a role anymore. He was discovering a part of himself he'd never known existed. "Can I ask you something?" Amanda said suddenly, her expression turning serious. Tatum's heart skipped a beat. "Of course," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Amanda leaned in close, lowering her voice. Is this something you do often, or is it just for tonight?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Tatum knew this was a crucial moment, not just for maintaining his cover, but for being honest with himself. It's complicated," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tonight was supposed to be a one-time thing, but I think I might have discovered something about myself." Amanda nodded, her expression softening. "I thought so. You seem so comfortable, natural. Like you found a missing piece of yourself?" Tatum felt a lump form in his throat. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's been paying attention," Amanda replied with a gentle smile. "I've always sensed there was more to you than you let on, Tatum." At the sound of his real name, Tatum's eyes widened. "You knew?" Amanda laughed softly. "Of course I knew. We've worked together for 2 years. A wig and some makeup can't hide who you really are, inside or out." Tatum felt a rush of emotions, relief, embarrassment, and something else he couldn't quite name. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "This whole night has been eye-opening." Amanda reached out, taking his hand in hers. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that whatever you decide to do with this discovery, you have support. And..." She hesitated for a moment before continuing. "If you ever want to talk about it or explore it further, I'm here." Tatum looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the sincerity in her eyes. In that moment, he felt a connection with Amanda that went beyond physical attraction or workplace camaraderie. She saw him, all of him, and accepted him without judgment. "Thank you," he said softly, squeezing her hand. "That means more than you know." They stood there for a while longer, talking quietly and watching the stars. As the party began to wind down inside, Tatum realized that this night had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. He'd come expecting embarrassment and ridicule, but instead found acceptance and self-discovery. When it was time to leave, Tatum said goodbye to Amanda with a promise to talk more at work. As he climbed into Derek's car, still in his dress and wig, he caught sight of his reflection in the window. The face that looked back at him was neither fully Tatum nor fully Tatiana, but something in between, a new version of himself that he was just beginning to know. "So," Megan said from the front seat, a knowing smile on her face, How does it feel to win a bet and lose yourself? Tatum laughed, the sound light and genuine. I think, he said carefully, that I might have won more than I lost. As they drove home through the quiet streets, Tatum's mind raced with possibilities. He didn't know exactly what the future held or how this night would change his life going forward. But he did know one thing for certain. The person who'd reluctantly agreed to this bet was not the same person sitting in the back seat now. And for the first time in a long time, he was excited to get to know this new version of himself. The days following the party were a whirlwind of emotions and self-reflection for Tatum. He found himself analyzing every interaction, every feeling he'd experienced that night. The memory of looking in the mirror and seeing Tatiana staring back at him lingered, a constant presence in the back of his mind. At work, things with Amanda had shifted subtly. There was a new understanding between them, unspoken but palpable. They'd catch each other's eye across the office and share a secret smile, both recalling their conversation on the porch. Tatum found himself looking forward to their lunch breaks, where they could talk more freely. So, Amanda said one day, as they sat in a quiet corner of the cafeteria, have you given any more thought to, Tatum nodded, pushing his salad around his plate. It's pretty much all I've been thinking about, he admitted. I don't know where to go from here. Amanda reached across the table, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. There's no rush, This is your journey. Take all the time you need to figure things out. Her words were comforting, but Tatum still felt a sense of urgency. Now that he'd glimpsed this other side of himself, he couldn't simply ignore it. I think, he said slowly, I might want to try it again. Not at a party or anything, just privately, to see how it feels. Amanda's face lit up. That's great. If you want, I could help. We could have a girls' night in, do makeovers, watch movies. No pressure, just a safe space to explore. Tatum felt a rush of gratitude for her support. That sounds really nice, actually. Thank you, Amanda. As they finished their lunch and headed back to their desks, Tatum felt a mix of excitement and nervousness bubbling up inside him. He was taking a step into unknown territory, but for the first time, he didn't feel alone in his journey. The next weekend found Tatum standing nervously outside Amanda's apartment, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He'd told his roommates he was going to a friend's place for a movie night, which wasn't entirely untrue. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door. Amanda answered with a warm smile, ushering him inside. Welcome! Are you ready for a fabulous girls' night? Tatum managed a shaky laugh. As ready as I'll ever be, I guess. They started with a simple makeover, Amanda guiding Tatum through the process of applying makeup. It was different from the party, less about creating a flawless illusion and more about exploring and having fun. They giggled over smudged eyeliner and debated lipstick shades, the initial awkwardness melting away. Once the makeup was done, Amanda helped Tatum into a cute outfit she'd picked out, a flowy summer dress in a soft blue that brought out his eyes. As Tatum twirled in front of the mirror, he felt that same rush of excitement and rightness he'd experienced at the party. You look beautiful, Amanda said softly, standing beside him in the reflection. Tatum blushed, smoothing down the dress. It feels right, he admitted, like I'm seeing the real me for the first time. They spent the rest of the evening watching rom-coms, painting each other's nails, and talking. Tatum found himself opening up about feelings he'd never dared voice before. The times he'd admired women's clothing in secret, the dreams where he'd been female, the constant sense that something about him didn't quite fit. It's okay to question things, Amanda assured him. Gender isn't always as simple as we're taught to believe. There's no one right way to be. As the night wore on, Tatum felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. Here, in this safe space with Amanda, he could be himself, whoever that turned out to be. When it was time for him to leave, Tatum felt a pang of reluctance. Changing back into his male clothes felt like putting on a costume. Remember, Amanda said as she walked him to the door, this doesn't have to be a one-time thing. My door is always open if you want to explore more." Tatum hugged her tightly, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." In the weeks that followed, Tatum found himself spending more and more time at Amanda's apartment. Their girls' nights became a regular occurrence, a chance for Tatum to be Tatiana in a safe, judgment-free environment. With each visit, he grew more comfortable in his feminine persona. At work, Tatum began to notice subtle changes in his behavior and appearance. He grew out his hair, started taking better care of his skin, and found himself gravitating towards more androgynous clothing. If his coworkers noticed, they didn't comment. It was during one of their movie nights, about 2 months after the party, that Tatum finally voiced the thoughts that had been swirling in his mind. "I think," he said quietly, his head resting on Amanda's shoulder, "that I might be transgender." Amanda turned to look at him, her expression soft and understanding. "How does it feel to say that out loud?" Tatum took a deep breath, considering. "Scary," he admitted, "but also right. Like I'm finally being honest with myself." Amanda pulled him into a hug. "I'm so proud of you," she murmured. "And I'm here for you, whatever you decide to do next." That conversation marked a turning point for Tatum. With Amanda's support, he began to research more about gender identity and transition options. He found online support groups and started seeing a therapist who specialized in gender issues. The journey wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, of fear, of wondering if he was making the right choice. But with each step, whether it was trying out new pronouns, experimenting with different styles, or finally working up the courage to tell his friends and family, Tatum felt more and more like his true self. A year after that fateful party, Tatum, now going by Tatiana full-time, stood in front of the mirror in her new apartment. She smoothed down her dress, the same one she'd worn that night, and smiled at her reflection. Her hair was longer now, her features softened by hormone therapy. But the biggest change was in her eyes. They shone with a confidence and joy that had been missing for so long. There was a knock at the door, and Tatiana opened it to find Amanda standing there, dressed up for their night out. "Ready to go, beautiful?" Amanda asked, leaning in for a kiss. Tatiana nodded, linking her arm through Amanda's. As they headed out, she couldn't help but marvel at how much her life had changed in just 1 year. What had started as a lost bet had led her to find herself, and in the process, find love. "You know," Tatiana said as they walked down the street, "I think I might owe the guys a thank you for that bet." Amanda laughed, squeezing her hand. "Maybe, but the real winner here is you. You found the courage to be your true self." Tatiana smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She thought back to that nervous person who'd reluctantly agreed to dress up for a party, never imagining where it would lead. The journey hadn't been easy, and she knew there would be more challenges ahead. But for the first time in her life, Tatiana felt truly, completely herself. As they rounded the corner towards the restaurant where their friends were waiting, Tatiana took a moment to appreciate how far she'd come. From a lost bet to a found identity, from confusion to clarity, from Tatum to Tatiana. It wasn't the path she'd expected her life to take, but standing here now, hand in hand with Amanda, she wouldn't change a thing. The restaurant glowed warmly, its windows spilling golden light onto the sidewalk as Tatiana and Amanda approached. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of roasted garlic and melted cheese, the hum of conversation blending with the clink of glasses and the faint strum of a guitar from a corner speaker. Their friends had claimed a long table near the back, a chaotic spread of empty plates and half-full drinks marking their territory. The group was a mix of familiar faces, co-workers who'd watched Tatiana's transformation unfold at the office, and the old poker crew who'd unknowingly sparked it all with a reckless bet a year ago. Derek spotted them first, his broad grin cutting through the din as he waved them over. "Well, damn, look who's here," he called, leaning back in his chair. "Tatiana, you're practically sparkling tonight. And Amanda, you're not half bad either." Thanks for watching. The rest won't be viewable on YouTube, so check out Patreon if you want more. I hope you have a wonderful day, my cutie.